Um, Hello, Out Pope fans. Today is another reaction video. Since y'all absolutely hated the last one, I'm gonna make another one. I don't care. These are very easy videos to make. Um, how did y'all like my Morgan Freeman video more than my Circus of Horrors video? That makes no sense. The Morgan Freeman video is 30 minutes of just pure garbage, and the reaction video was one, you get to see my beautiful face, and two, um, it was more interesting. Nobody cares about the Honda Ridgeline first gen, and the Morgan Freeman voice wasn't even that good. Whatever. Today we will be reacting to the Buick Riata review from Doug DeMuro. Let's get on with it. This? Yeah. He does that. If y'all don't know Doug. If y'all know Doug, y'all are good. Y'all are real. I love Doug.
Is a 1989 Buick Riata, and it's the rare, interesting luxury coupe you've probably forgotten. It's also filled...
You've not forgotten about this. You've never heard of this. You've never heard of this. Doug's wrong. You've never heard of this. It's not forgotten. Actually, it is forgotten if you've never heard of it. I don't know.
With some crazy 1980s technology, so get ready. Because today I'm going to review this car and show you what the future looked like 30 years ago. At least according to Buick. Before I get started, be sure to check out Cars and Bids.
We're not going to let Doug advertise his website, even though, go check out Cars and Bids. But don't use it. Just check it out. Use Facebook Marketplace.
Diego, and I'll start with the basics. The Riata was a luxury, sporty two-seater that was sold by Buick from 1988 to 1991. Initially, you could only get the Riata as a coupe, but later they also came out with a convertible that was much rarer.
That is a nice convertible, I'll tell you right now. Nice to drive, I don't know. But it looks very nice. It's a very nice looking convertible. Like, yeah, not much more I can say.
Unfortunately, the Riata wasn't much of a success. Buick envisioned it as a halo car that would bring people to the Buick brand and set the direction for the company and sell 20,000 units a year. But by the time production
very
ended,
interesting,
Buick
Doug.
had sold only 21,000 units in 4 years. Part of the problem was
that's bad.
Every Riata was front-wheel drive with a 4-speed automatic transmission and a V6 that made about 170 horsepower.
Okay, so when you're getting a Buick, do you expect sportiness? Like, no one... Yeah, no shit, this car's lame to drive. It's a Buick. I can't think of a single fun Buick. Maybe the Tornado. Is that even a Buick? I don't know, but... Yeah, this is... it's not a cool car. Also, I'm wearing the same shirt as in my Circus of Horrors video. So yeah.
Intended to be the car that showed Buick buyers what the future had in store. And this car had technology that no other General Motors vehicle had at the time. Frankly, that no other car had at the time. The thinking was that Grandpa would walk into the Buick dealer and he would be wowed by the Riata sitting in the showroom floor with its cutting-edge technology and its elegant styling, and he would be so impressed with the direction of the Buick brand that he would buy a Regal or a LeSabre. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. And these days, it's hard to find a nice Riata, or frankly, any Riata at all.
That's not true, dog. There's like 12 of them on Facebook Marketplace in my area. 500-kilometer radius. But still, Doug. Yeah, you're right. None of the Riatas are nice. But they're all cheap. They're all so cheap. If you want a Riata, you can get one for like, I don't know, $3 grand? $1.5 grand? These things are freaking cheap. They're kind of cool looking.
But today, I'm going to take you on a tour of this one, and I'm going to show you all of the interesting quirks and features from the hotbed of General Motors technology from 30 years ago. Then I'm going to get it out on the road and drive it, and then I'm going to give it a Doug score.
Stay tuned for that Doug score. Ah! Do not buy Rogers or anything. Oh yeah, I live in Quebec, by the way. That's why it's in French. I'm good, Rogers. Don't buy the ZDX. Not a good car. Well, I don't know if it's good or not. I heard pretty bad things about the new one. And the old one just looks plain weird. So, no, that's the ADX. Acura's cars are so unrecognizably boring. Whatever. I don't care. Let's see this cute guy talk about cars.
All right, I'm going to start the quirks and features with the quirkiest feature, one of the craziest things I've ever seen in a car, and that would be the touch screen. This car came out 32 years ago, but this is a factory-installed touchscreen put in by Buick when this car was new.
God damn.
It works well. So let's go through it. What you're seeing here is
1989
the
touchscreen.
Buick calls the summary screen, and it shows your most important items. For example, your most frequently used radio controls. You can raise or lower the volume and seek through radio stations. And yes, you can see that as I tap this screen, it actually works and responds to my tap with pretty much no delay. Also on this screen, you can do various other items. You can switch between AM and FM radio, for example, and you can change the climate control temperature, cooler or warmer, all of that sort of stuff that you might want to do the most frequently is on this summary screen. You will also see low on the screen is the date, and
cool stuff.
This 32-year-old car was programmed to be able to have this date still working in 2020, and it works beautifully.
Cool.
But the is just one
wow,
this screen
a cool Buick.
Positioned around the screen, there are 6 different buttons, and each one of them pulls up a different screen. For example, in the upper left, you have the climate button. If you push that, you have a more comprehensive climate.
Yeah, I don't know. Is this cool, guys? It's quirky. It's one of its quirks and features. But is it cool?
To me, though, the very
is it a cool
maybe the best part of this entire touch
car?
Is the fan speed graphic. You can see this fan is twisting in the upper right to let you know that the climate control is on. If you put the fan on high, the fan graphic actually speeds up to correspond with the higher fan speed. If you put the fan on low, the fan graphic
I wouldn't expect
down to
anything
with the lower fan
less
great attention
from Buick. Like this quality, the standard from Buick.
Left is marked gauges, and if you press that, it will pull up your gauges because this car doesn't have a traditional gauge cluster behind the steering wheel. More on that in a minute. But as you can see, the gauges screen
I guess this is the Tesla, Tesla 3 of the 89s.
It actually shows the engine speed
89s.
in this digital tachometer in your Riata touchscreen. And next we move on to the button in the lower middle. That one is called Options, and it is quite interesting. When you press it, you have 3 different options. The first one is Trip Computer. This doesn't function like a normal trip computer. It's better than that. When you set off on a drive, you can enter how many miles the drive is. And then whenever you visit your trip computer page, it will tell you how many miles you have left to go. You can do the same thing with time, so you can check how long you have left in your journey. In the days before Google Maps
I
and
guess.
all sorts of map apps on your cell phone, this was a pretty good idea to keep track of how much longer you still had on a long journey. Your next choice on the options screen was your trip monitor, which would show you simple things like your fuel economy and your range until you ran out of fuel. Although my very favorite piece on here is the overspeed alarm. If you pressed on that, you could set an alarm that would beep every time you went over the speed limit.
How fast would you be going in this?
Traffic sign recognition like modern high-tech cars.
Oh,
Instead,
yeah.
you entered the speed limit manually. And that way it knew when to start beeping, and that was your overspeed alarm. And finally, the last thing in the options tab is a reminder. This one is very unusual. You press on that, and you can choose like 3 letters that best sum up a reminder that you want to set. Then you can choose how often you want to be reminded, once, weekly, monthly, yearly, whatever, and then you could program it to remind you every week, month, year,
For
whatever,
what?
on a specific date. So maybe if you were prone to forgetting your spouse's birthday, your wedding
Oh yeah, your
anniversary, or
Buick
some weekly
Riata.
task you
Yeah.
had to do, set a reminder
The
in
only
Riata
people who would
touchscreen,
be
and your
buying this
car
cars
will remind you.
would have
And
dead
next up, the
wives
button in
because
the
of
lower
old
right of the
age.
touchscreen was your status button. Nothing particularly interesting in here. It just allowed you to configure various different general settings. Like, for example, you could go in here and set the clock if you want to whatever the current time is, pretty standard. You can also set the date in here, and that's how the car knows what day it is. This also gave you the option to set
Oh,
the brightness
jeez,
of the
a
center
Buick
screen. You
video
can make
being
it dimmer
fun.
or
Am I right?
brighter, of course, depending on what you wanted to see. Nothing crazy. You could also set.
Swear to God, Doug. I don't want to see this touchscreen anymore.
The player below the screen actually opens up, which I just think is an amazing touch. This car was way ahead of its time in terms of gauge test from a gauge cluster, but it went further than that.
That looks like
For
an
instance,
oven.
You can press the test button in the lower left of the screen, and then for about a second, all of the lights in the gauge cluster light up to let you know that they work. But it also has the function of showing you what all the lights are. My personal favorite is the one that simply says electrical problem. That's one you probably don't want to have light up on you, considering how much of this car is electronic.
Oh yeah.
But probably the most interesting warning light in there.
Yeah, no
is the one
shit,
that says
Doug.
C Diagnostic Center. Check this out. I open up the door and then I put the car in drive and try to drive away. Instead of having a door open warning light in the gauge cluster, it says C Diagnostic Center with an arrow and points to the screen, which tells me that the door is open. So that C Diagnostic Center warning light actually alerts you to go look in a different place for the actual warning. Very interesting idea, and you can see that the gauge cluster screen
Doug,
and the diagnostic
I
center
mean,
screen really do talk to each other. It's very unusual. Now, next we
yeah.
move on to all the interesting
Yeah,
buttons
Doug,
in
it's
the
very
Riata. Now,
quirky.
to the left of the gauge cluster, at the top you have a button marked lights. You press that and the lights turn on. Pretty simple. The interesting thing here is that this car has pop-up headlights, so here are the lights popping up.
I think this car looks very cool. I think it looks super awesome.
Here are the lights popping back down. Not that unusual for a 1980s car.
Very cool.
Very cool. A couple of interesting things about the headlights. When you turn on the headlights, the reminder in the gauge cluster that lets you know they're on says halogen headlights on. It doesn't just say lights or have a picture of a light. It actually says halogen headlights on. Not sure why, but it does. Another interesting thing about
very
the
interesting.
To the left, you can see there's a separate button to turn the lights off, and it is marked simply lights off. Now below that, you have a little dial that says Sentinel with 3 options: off, delay, and high. This was what General Motors called the Twilight Sentinel. And it was a feature that basically measured how dark it was, and then the headlights would turn on automatically when it got dark.
That's pretty cool.
Automatic headlights. General Motors called it the Twilight Sentinel.
That's, I mean, it's a cool feature for a car this old.
Sentinel would operate like normal.
Doug, shut the fuck up. I don't care about the Sentinel. I think it's a cool feature considering how old this car is. I didn't know cars this old had that feature.
But over on the right side of the gauge cluster, things get unusual again. Most of Doug. High, low, wipers off. One thing I like is the intermittent wipers are controlled.
Not a fan of these buttons, honestly.
Yes, they pump, and it says the let button get to a gas station. The old fuel gauge zoom button. And next up, a couple of other interesting buttons in the Riata. At the base of the center control stack on the left, you have a button marked fog lamps. You can press that, turn on the fog lamps. It is not anywhere near the rest of the region. If you're a very silver switch, reasonable there. Here you have bright air. Got a hat switches down, and these another prize.
What was that?
Sounds. Take a listen. Indeed,
this is a clown car. What the fuck? The Buick GNX at the halftime show was literally a clown car. So many people stepped out of it. Oh my god. Oh my god. That was literally a clown car. And this is also a GM car. Interesting. Wait, it's also... Buick did make a cool car. What the hell? Buick did make a cool car. The Buick GNX. Yeah. Didn't think about that.
Riata has the horns
Kind of
of
crazy how they made
truck.
more than one clown
Cruise
car.
ship. Speaking of unusual sounds, though, put on the turn signal and a reminder chime sounds along with the regular clicking noise. Take a listen. I guess they did this because so many old people in the 80s and 90s would just put on their turn signal and not hear the clicking sound.
Yeah, that's how they do it. Cassette holders.
You can put stuff in there. The most interesting thing about the glove box is probably the fact that it has
The fuel door and the trunk button are in there. That's what he's gonna say.
controls for the trunk and for the fuel door.
Yeah, that is pretty odd.
The reason Riata be worn at this point, you can put it right up and you can
Cool stuff, I guess.
Car.
Has a different badge, which looks pretty cool.
Two-seater, but most two-seaters are hard
Does this thing have T-tops? That's fucking dope. Holy shit.
to get. It's a tremendously
No, it doesn't.
expensive about the shocking piece and key fob. And once you get into the trunk, you will discover that it is quite large, which very much goes along with.
That is not large. Maybe in person I can vouch, but that is not a big trunk.
Which was the Riata logo, and it mainly says Riata pretty much everywhere else throughout the exterior. Center of the large print, kind of, and Buick with posted grill in front. It was a totally new look.
I think it looks cool.
You have in varying capacities and evolutions.
What a shit motor that is. What even is that?
When you put on your left signal, the left cornering light came on. Your right signal.
Interesting, I guess.
The Riata. Unfortunately, the driving experience of this car is the low point. The technology is cool. The marketing and the position.
Okay, yeah, so it's not a good driver's car. No shit, it's a Buick. Now, please, let's get to the Doug score. This?
What?
And it's not. Signaling is better than I expected, but still 0 to 60 about 10.9. But
I don't care. Just get to the
daily 100, which
value of 6 is not great, and of course it ranks lower than even the piece of fucking shit Jaguar XJS V12. Actually ranks the same. Holy fuck. Yeah. Yeah, if the Buick Riata ranks the same as the Jaguar XJS V12, it's not a good sign, Buick. Oh, and of course just the regular Grand National is pretty high. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and yeah, have a fucking good day, because honestly, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Like, the fuck am I doing anymore?